Hello, good morning to you, and many thanks for joining us on Galaxy. Today, we sincerely apologize for starting behind schedule. It is the Thursday Relationship Thursday on Galaxy today. Welcome you on board. My name is Justin Akadonye.
And as usual, he's with Uche Onyekuluji. Like he rightly said, welcome on board. Okay, so Justin, we're looking at question you must ask girlfriend before proposing. This is directed to you, Justin.
It is directed to men who are yet to get married and who are actually, before you propose to that gorgeous woman, be sure to ask as many marriage-relevant questions.
Okay, so let me put you on the spot, Justin.
And today we have a guest who will be discussing this issue with us.
Let me put you on the spot.
And gentlemen, before Uche starts with her attack on me, we have a relationship coach in the house. Let us make welcome once again the very eloquent Deji, Irawo. Many thanks for joining us on Galaxy today. You can see when women try to attack men.
But I'm not going to attack him. He's a man. Permit me to, please.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Justin.
You didn't just do that, baby.
All right. Justin, in your mind as a man, what are the few questions you would like to ask a woman before proposing?
What did you say again?
Oh, like seriously. Do you want me to say it in English?
Okay, do you still have feelings for an ex?
Okay, one. What other question?
What's your love language?
What does it look? It looks like we have to Google something. He's reading from Google.
We have a guest in the house, Deji. Many thanks for joining us on Galaxy.
Pleasure's mine.
You know, let's take a cue from what he asked. It's a very sensitive question.
Yes.
I mean, a whole lot of people, or I've heard people say they are married to whom they are really not in love with, but because of pressure to be married, they just marry, and they still have feelings here and there. And I don't know if it's because of microchemirism or whatsoever, but would you say it's the right questions to ask an intended spouse? That do you still have feelings for your ex?
Of course, that conversation is going to come up at some point.
Okay.
Before you get to that level, you need to engage, like we normally would say when you start a relationship with somebody and you see it's going steady, and you see that okay, you want to take it to a next level. Then there's a fundamental questions you need to ask to be, before you guys go to the altar, like they normally would say. So it's definitely relevant. But like I normally would like to do, I like to twist the conversation this way and say what we're really not seeing is the fact that it's not just an issue of what question does a man ask before he gets married. The question is, does the man know how to communicate in the first place?
Just to get a pen.
And we've realized that the way they bring up boys will give us issues in communication. Communication is the underlying thing that holds relationships together. It's the ability for me to let you know how I'm feeling, what I want to say to you. And it's not complete until you hear exactly what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
Communication is complete when you hear exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a problem with the way we raise many men, because what he's saying is not what you're catching. Why? Because from a very young age, boys are trained you can't talk too much. You can't talk about your feelings, and you cannot be emotional. Now, if communication itself, language itself, is just 30-something% words, but more body language, tone, and innuendos, then somebody already has a problem communicating. So he's going to struggle telling you exactly how he feels. He's going to struggle letting you know exactly what he wants to tell you. And because he has been told he can't talk the way he's supposed to talk, he will have a listening problem, because obviously he hasn't been allowed to express himself, to hear. Because what we normally say is that at that age 4 or 5, when they begin to say you're talking like a girl, don't talk too much, don't cry, everything, you begin to shut down some natural abilities for him that he needs to grow in. So most of the time you will find that many people complain that men do not do very well in communicating. So most of the time when you're having a narrative, you find that the woman is talking more and he's just saying listening, and then you want to hear, and then he obviously has a problem with stringing the words together, and then he also has a problem even now telling you exactly what he wants to tell you, because he has been trained not to be able to tell you.
Okay, can we twist the question down? What are the question a lady is supposed to be asking her boyfriend? Because it looks like it's the man that, well, this part of the world, the man must propose, not the woman. Only certain people understand that sometimes the lady can take the notch. But in a situation whereby you are the one in the relationship now as a girl, and then you already see signs, some guys will tell you, I don't need to propose for you to know I want to marry you. You have the key to my house, you know, maybe you know. But as a woman, what are those questions she needs to ask?
I think on both ways, the narrative basically is to find out if that person is going where you're going.
Okay.
If that person is seeing life how you are seeing it. Are
yes.
you guys drawing a vision together that the two of you agree with? So you're dealing with fundamental question of how will we get there? And those are key questions. So questions like, okay, so what are you thinking of doing in the next 5 years? Are you going to be reading further? Are you going to be doing business on your own? Are you, want to stay in state employment? Okay, so what's our policy when it comes to things like, because the whole idea is to have a family vision, which most families don't have. Is when you sit down and craft a vision and more like a constitution for your family and say, this is what we are going to abide by. So that's when you start asking the questions like, so I'm a family person and I don't have an issue my people coming to live with me. You can say, well, that doesn't cut from where I'm coming from, that doesn't cut. Then you also ask those questions, is my money your money or our money your money? That's when you ask those questions. That's when you ask those questions of, and then you ask questions, so how many children are you looking at? You also ask questions of, okay, so how, all this issue of joint account or no joint account, those are the seasons where you've gotten to, okay, I like you, you look beautiful, you're nice, I think there's chemistry. Then you now sit down and start talking about the real conversations, which is what I think today is about. Now you need to ask those things. Okay, so how do we treat both families? How much access do we give them? How do we raise our children? What kind of schools are they going to go to? Those are the core conversations, because at the end of the day, like you normally would say, once you get married, the oohs and ahs would end in 1 year. Now you have to face reality. So if you didn't discuss those conversations before you get married, now you're going to have issues that you're not dealing with. Issue of somebody's pregnant and then somebody's sister is planning to move in, and then the guy is saying, sorry, that's not the plan. That's not
but then again, so the issue of children and schools and the exact kind of schools should be discussed even before you get into
Of course, you need to begin to know how your partner is thinking. Okay. And then you need to also begin to talk about income. So how much are we generating together? Is everybody working? Is somebody going to be allowed to do business? So based on what we are looking at, when is it okay to start having children? And when we start having children, what kind of schools are we looking at? Because
you mentioned finance, that seems to be an issue with most
it's an issue.
Yeah, so not even for marriages, even before they get into the whole marriage institution. Most people are not really truthful or very, forthcoming about how much they earn. So if you're in a relationship and you propose to this girl, should both of you tell each other the exact amount you take home monthly?
If you're not going to be open at that level, then your marriage is not going to stand on anything.
Okay.
So you need to start having conversations at that point. From the male perspective, that's one of the issues we're going to have, because we raise boys to feel shame when they are not performing, because we are performance-driven men, and we have a culture that where men are shamed for not achieving up to societal standards. So at that level, you might find a man not telling you exactly how much it is, or falsifying figure. Well, it's like we keep saying, if you don't raise boys the way you raise them now, you won't have those issues. But once you raise boys to be performance-driven people, they're always going to want to perform and impress you. And at that level, they're going to falsify figures or do things you don't even know they are doing to be able to make the money. Because society has a way of shaming men when they don't live up to expectation.
I see.
Yeah, so you're going to get people who are economic with the truth.
Okay, let me just buttress what you just said with late Pastor Mrs. Bimbo Duka. She said, relationship is a time for interview, not for intercourse. Okay, so a lot of people say in the process of dating someone and trying to know someone, how far is too far? I mean, if he has not proposed, how would you say he is right to do, this thing of coming so close to the family, having this kind of intimacy with the family, and some people say there should be boundaries. If he hasn't proposed, there's an extent you should go with him or with her. If he hasn't proposed, you shouldn't be seen everywhere and anywhere because you don't know if you're good. I just wanted to clarify that.
I think, funny enough, Pastor Bimbo happens to be a personal mentor of mine. I worked with her for quite a year, so obviously I know that phrase a lot. And the whole idea of that phrase is to say, when you meet someone, you want to get to know the person. So obviously there's going to be some interactions for the person to, well, like a better word, check you out. You know, so coming to your house once a while, meeting your people, you know, going out with you once a while. He or she needs to get to know you. You know, seeing your comfort zone, seeing you where you're not so made up, you know, to know that, okay, this is who you are in stuff. And then definitely say, when we come into your home and we see the kind of home you're growing up with, how you relate to your siblings and your parents and everything, gives us an idea the kind of person you are. Are you bossy? Are you cooperative? You know, do you do things at home? Are you domestic? You know, that kind of thing. And just gives you the way, you know, gives the person real feedback. The person needs that feedback to take that conversation forward. It's okay, based on what I'm saying, I think I'm comfortable with this person to a point, and to consider. But at that point where you begin to tell yourself, it needs to go to the next level. I've seen, and for this to happen, like you're saying, you don't have to hang around the person 24 hours a day. You don't need to, you know, go to the person's house, you know, literally almost every day. No, I mean, a few visits here and there, you can get what you're trying to see eventually. That's what will now make you form those questions that you probably have not observed in the few times you've connected with this person. Now you want to know, okay, I'm noticing this, but can you answer this question for me? I think this is it, but can you elaborate in this area? What kind of person are you really? As long as there's no sex in the conversation, you understand, then, you know, there's no level, there's no extent to which you can probe just to be able to be sure that, you know, this relationship.
I like to say something. I have a friend now who's planning her wedding, and then one of the issues she faced or facing now is that the groom-to-be's family are against them in a way, simply because she's older than him. And speaking with her, she told me that, was it right to have told, or was it right for him to have told the people, or should it have been a secret between them? And so, saying that these are questions one must ask his or her spouses before getting married, would you say that on a part in a country where they feel the man must be older than the woman, and this is a situation whereby two people love each other, they want to be with each other, and the reason they can't be with each other is because parental consent, one of the parents is saying no, simply because they feel the girl is older than the man?
Well, I think those are narratives we continue to have this side of the world based on how culture is. But obviously he is supposed to be the one who goes to his family and says, I want to do this and I need your support in this.
But they're free
to let him know.
Okay.
Of course, you have to come to the table with open hands. So
his family people.
Yes, he needs to let them know, because, like, you know how it happens in Africa. You're marrying families, not just the person. You understand? And it's always good for everybody to know where everybody is. So it's something we want to do, because you can't marry in isolation. But it's an issue of him being able to go back home and get his family to understand what their issues are. Now, he must be able to allay their fears, whatever fears they have. He must sit down, listen to those fears, and let them know, yes, I have heard what you said, but this is what I'm thinking is the best way to go about it. How do you think we as a family can cross this Jordan, you know, and then be able to still have, because you have to put into consideration here that I love this person, and if my happiness is what you're looking at, then you must, you know, I need to get that parental support here as I move there, because I don't want to move there alone. But we don't normally have those buy-ins in our relationship. Why? Because a lot of times the older people feel they are seeing something you're not seeing, and they're trying to, you know, protect you from something you might not see tomorrow. So I think what needs to happen is a lot of dialogue. Let them say what they're afraid of, and then let this guy be able to sit with this lady and say, this is why my people are not seeing this. Pop down the line, if these issues come up, how do we handle this issue when it comes up? And then, you know, they can pick it up.
Speaking of talking about things both parties are afraid of, is it right for the man to ask the lady if she has been in an abusive relationship, whether physical or emotional?
Those are the core questions you're going to have to ask when you get about getting married. Because if you don't ask those questions, somebody's past will haunt you. Yeah, so you need to ask all those questions you feel people, I mean, it's more like, at that point, it's more like sitting down and generally just, you know, in a very loving environment, but just generally just getting your facts right. So you need to ask, have you been in an abusive relationship before? Are you a single? Have you had children before? All those kind of things. You know, are you previously married? You know, why are you getting married? You know, because a lot of times, if you don't ask those questions, you find that somebody's getting married because they feel they are too old. You know, and they've just seen somebody as an opportunity to just get married so that the family can wish you off and do, you know, a celebration for it. Because a lot of times you find that a lot of pressure within families for somebody to get married and go out of the house. So you need to ask your spouse that question: why are you getting married to me? What is marriage to you? How are we going to do? See, if the person doesn't give you a satisfactory action, then you don't want to go there. You also want to ask health issues. You know, you have issues. Are you AS? Are you AS? Are you asthmatic?
Yes.
Are you this? Are you that? You want to know. So when you go into it, then, you know, I have a cousin who is SS, and the husband with his eyes open, you know, married her like that. There are 3 children, she's still alive. In some cases it happens, in cases it doesn't happen. So you enter marriage knowing fully well that you are like this, you know, and the other party knows exactly what they need to know. So when you're in that relationship, you are not afraid. You can sleep with your eyes closed, and you're not, you know, there's nothing haunting you.
I like to take a cue from what he just said. You know, this same friend was close to marriage about, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, but because she almost was abused by her sister's husband, and then opening up to this man broke the relationship, and now she's involved with another man whom is saying, okay, he wants it, but his parent is saying, hey, she's too old for you. In a situation like that, where she's beginning to think, do I have to open up a lot? There's some things that are supposed to be kept within me, because someone said, if you are involved in something, just deal with God, and if God is fine with you, you're fine.
Nah, not when you're dealing with, because marriage is you, him, and God. It's the 3 things. You know, so when you get to that point, it's like, you know, like I normally say, when you're absolutely sure you want to do this and this person is serious, that's when you should have those conversations. It's not at the very beginning when I don't know you too well, there's no connect, and, you know, it's still very open like that. It's when this person lets you know, I'm thinking of going to the next level, and you say, and you can see it that they're committed to it. That's when you begin to have those conversations gradually. But you must have all that conversation before you go to the altar. It
There's a
doesn't make
question for
anything
you, Deji. Goodness from Ikeja. Okay, we've asked this before. I'm sure you just tuned in. She says, is it right for a man to ask a woman if she still loves her ex? We've just talked about that.
Yeah, we just talked about that. Yeah, you need to be sure that you're married to one person, not 2 people living in one person.
Exactly.
Okay, but what if maybe they have conversations concerning, you know, what they like, what they have been through, you know, and maybe one of the parties actually lies about. For instance, you talked about asking questions concerning if she has or has had a child, or if she's been abused or not. What if she was not truthful, and eventually they got into the whole marriage institution, and somehow the bubble burst?
Fundamentally, you're going to have issues, because that means that that entire marriage is
based
built
on a lie.
Yeah, it's based on a lie. And the day it comes out, you're going to have lots of trust issues, and they are going to give counselors a lot of work to do, because they're going to have to walk the 2 of you back into a process, you know, go through healing, go through having to trust the person again, how you feel that your trust has been breached. And people respond to, you know, breaching trust differently from each other. You know, for some, you know, might be easier, for other person it's tough, you know, so you need to understand that you want to open that narrative up in such a way that it works.
Okay, another one. Can you ask a girl if she is a virgin?
Well, when you're getting married, when you're getting close to that, you can ask that question, obviously. So it just lets you know.
Okay.
How about the past, discussing the past with your intended?
Yeah.
Some people, I don't know how that is. Some people tell you, okay, the past is in the past. You're meeting me from here. I owe you everything from here. That is, okay, like they say, to discuss the past is when you have to, or when you want to. As long as the past is not who you currently are, that you owe the person who you are. I don't know if you understand.
You see, I keep saying anytime I'm here to say, look, the problem we have is very fundamental. We are not raising emotionally intelligent people, with all due respect. You know, culturally, we're raising people who have grown age-wise and they have money. But it doesn't mean that they are emotionally and relationally mature.
Yeah.
You know, so we're always having to deal with these petty, tiny issues, because we have raised people in a performance-driven home, or a home that doesn't have a clear vision, or a situation in which people have just, you know, developed in other areas of their life, aside from the emotions and the maturity that they need in terms of relationships. If you have those kind of people will raise flags about the things we're talking about, this, that, and everything. So you're going to have, so we're having more less very mature people getting married, and that's the challenging we have. So we're having to deal with a lot of issues. People get upset, thread on social media, people get upset, tell the whole world they're upset, people having issues with their ex, they throw everything out there. It just shows you that you're dealing with fickle people, and fickle people don't get married. When they get married, obviously they don't have the capacity to sustain something. And so if we keep churning out this quality of people, we're going to have issues in our marriage and relationships, and continue this cycle of discussing tiny things like, oh, how much of the past do I say, how much of the past don't I say, and things like that, because you just have people who are just not mature within.
All right, Deji, just before we let you go, just to sum it all up right now, ideally, what should be the focus of the communication, because most times the family of the man goes to the extent of trying to find out about the woman's family, to get to know if they've had issues in their family and if it could affect this present relationship. But what should be the core, Should it just be about the man and the woman talking, or extending it to their own families?
Well, if family is a support base, which it should be, then we can extend that conversation if it needs to extend. Because it will extend the way the African narrative is. We are, very into ourselves as a family, which is why if we define family the way we're supposed to define family, it's supposed to be people who are family, and people who got your back, people who love you, irrespective of who you are or what you've done. Those kind of people are supposed to be able to sit around you and keep looking for ways to support you and walk you through life. If we don't find that kind of relationship where people are just your family members based on name, and they want to distance themselves from you when you go through issues, then we need to sit down and go back and reshaping what we call family in Africa and how we want to go about it.
Well, thank you so much, Deji. Before we'll let you go finally, can you just throw out your social media handles for those who may want to follow you after this show?
Okay, so I'm at Deji Irawo. That's 2 I's, DEJIIRAWO, Deji Irawo. That's my social media handle. And it'd be nice to connect with anybody if possible.
Oh, thank you so much.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back, and we'll still be talking relationship, but from another angle. Did you give us a bit of hint, of what we'll be discussing when we come back from the second? We'll be looking at emotional intelligence in romantic relationships in a moment when we return.